Welcome back to the channel. Thank you all for hanging with me on this Sunday. I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving break. Now let's talk about what's going on the lake right now if your lake has yet to freeze over. I know here in North Alabama, we've had a month of pretty cool weather. The last couple of weeks, we had a frost and the highs haven't been much higher than the mid 50s. So for that reason, the lake has really chilled off. And what I typically like to do in these colder months where I know no matter what I find, I'm probably going to be fishing for 5 to 7 bites all day. I turn to cranking on days when you have a lot of clouds. So I like old school crankbaits, and each crankbait that you've ever heard of from the old school has some type of cult following, and a Lure Jensen speed trap is no different. So Wigglewart is one that you'll hear a lot about, especially once we get into the early spring. But the Lure Jensen speed trap, when that water is a little bit cooler and maybe you're fishing more of bluffy style rock banks like riprap, this is the bait. I really think that this bait is going to be really good in grass. It's really good in a lot of different situations, but riprap is key, and most lakes have that somewhere. And what you'll typically find on riprap, which makes it unique to other types of cover and structure, is on windy days where you may have a little warm patch of water somewhere in a bay or a pocket. If that warm water gets blown across the pocket, it can be a degree or two warmer on that riprap. And it's not just because you have sun shining down on those rocks, getting the crawfish active, blowing other bait in there, or the heat that the rocks hold. It may also be warmer water getting blown up against it. So it's really the best of a bunch of different worlds. And that's where it's a good place to start, to just go out and get a few bites. On days where the bait is probably going to be in the same areas for the next month or two, but if you don't have that located and you don't have the right amount of bait, catching fish in those type spots can be really difficult. So I really like to run some of these high percentage community hole type places, because a lot of people are deer hunting. A lot of people aren't on the water, especially on these nastier days. You can get some of these type places to yourself that you're probably not going to get to yourself in the month of March or April. So this is one of those old school baits. And if you want to know if yours is the real deal old school bait, on this front hook hanger, you're going to have some dimples. If you have little dimples there, that is going to be one of the original Lure Jensen speed traps prior to Storm buying it and it being under the Rapala umbrella. So look for those little dimples. You may have a really expensive lure you might not want to use if you notice that, but I haven't played with any of the new ones. I got a bunch of the old ones that I really like, but for me, it's strictly riprap. I'm not trying to get too crazy with this on where I'm throwing it. I have a lot of baits. I already am pretty confident in the grass when I know there's fish there. So I strictly throw this around riprap. I'm throwing it around community type places where I know there's a lot of people fishing. I just don't think the fish see as many of these. Now, what makes this bait so unique is the angles. You have a couple angles down here on the bottom of the bait. There's just really nothing like it. This bill is a lot like your square bills or your medium diving square bills. So not so much different there, but it's the bottom of this bait. There's all these angles, and that plastic just feels a little bit different. This is a fairly larger bait, and it weighs a quarter. So lighter plastic, not as much weight that you would typically find, rather, but I don't have any trouble casting this. It throws really good, and when you get the wind to your back, probably how you're going to want to fish those riprap banks, you can throw it a mile. So this is one of those techniques this time of year, no matter where you live, as long as your lake hasn't froze over, a speed trap is going to be the deal. And you just got to pick it up and stay confident and stay patient, but you can catch some fish on that type structure. So if you're looking to go out and get a few bites when you don't know where the fish are at this time of year, try some riprap banks. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.